If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Ashers, and this is
Pat O.
Pat O's back again. Oh my goodness, in the flesh. Well,
just in time for the end of the year.
Just in time for the end of the year. That's perfect. Yeah, sorry you got cucked on the last episode.
Oh, it's no. If I had to pick anyone to watch fuck my work wife, it would definitely be Tobias Whalen. Or listen to fuck my work wife, I guess I would say. My podcasting work wife.
No, big thank you to Tobias for being Pato last week, or whatever. That was great, but people definitely miss you. They're concerned, they want to make sure that you're okay. So reassure people that you're okay and that you're not held hostage in my basement or something.
No, this is proof of life. I'm alive. I'll survive. I'm not. Still not 100%, but I'm fucking back, and I plan on staying back from here on out.
Well, good. I'm not getting rid of you anytime soon, so I hope that was the plan.
Because if you try, I'll kill you.
Oh shit! Maybe I'm ready. I don't know.
If you try to leave me, I'll kill us both. That's exactly what'll fucking happen.
How topical for the episode. No, I'm glad you're back. Many more Wednesdays to come, of course.
Right.
How was your Christmas? Anything?
Shitty. Honestly, I didn't want to spend like the whole fucking show talking about this.
Sure.
But I will share one anecdote from my recovery because it ties into it was definitely weird. Did not happen on a Wednesday, but whatever, it's kind of fitting. So Christmas Eve, I had dialysis. Did a small thing with the family, nothing huge. But Christmas Eve night, I had a terrifying experience where, I'm on a whole bunch of like blood thinners and blood pressure medicine, and my body chemicals are all out of whack. I'm on a low dosage of painkiller, nothing crazy. I'm not on Oxy, I'm not on Percocets, but got a little bit of painkillers going on. And Friday night, I don't know what the fuck happened to me, but I fell asleep kind of early and woke up about 10 o'clock, and everyone else was still up. My wife was still up. She was watching TV in the other room. And I basically was having I don't want to say like a fucking breakdown, but like, my mind was racing, my heart was racing. I kept thinking the most insane thoughts and like was talking in gibberish. And it was like a really bad trip. And I think I might have been having some kind of biological reaction to all the different meds that I was on. And they had just started me on a new blood thinner that day.
Okay.
And they had, at the same time, they had doubled my blood pressure medicine. So, and I'm also kind of like constantly sleep deprived. Like I'm not sleeping as well as I used to. So, I don't know if it was just the perfect storm, but man, I was on fucking Jupiter. And thank God, like this is what I will say is that kids, do drugs in your youth. Do drugs with your friends in wood paneled garages, listening to the Doors, because when you're older and you start having a psychological break, you'll know what the fuck is going on and you'll be able to pull the reins in. And whatever the fuck happened to me Friday night, and I still don't know what it is. And I saw doctors today for like my 2-week checkup and shit. And I explained it to them and they were like, oh, that's some shit. They weren't terribly concerned about it because it hasn't happened since. It was like an isolated incident. And like I said, it was probably just a mixture of sleep deprivation and the change in medication and shit. But I mean, the reason that I didn't entirely go off the deep end, the reason that like it was a mild to medium panic attack and not a severe one, the reason that I didn't try to like jump out of my fucking window like in my underwear was because there was that part of me that I had strengthened and honed over my 20s that was like, dude, you're tripping right now. Fucking pull it in. You know what I mean?
Sit down, have a glass of water.
Right. Like, this is
All
temporary.
right.
This is obviously drug
Yeah.
induced. This is not real. You know
Yeah.
better. Come on, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Let's put on some fucking Sublime and just ride this one out, and it'll all be better in the morning. And it was, for the most part, you know. So
That's so wild. I mean, what did you talk to anybody during your trip? I mean, not like actual people, but you know what I mean.
Actually, no, I did talk to my wife, and that helped too, because when you start saying the shit out loud to somebody, you realize how crazy you sound.
No. I mean, like, during your trip, was there like other entities involved?
No, I didn't manifest Godheads or anything like that. Okay. Primarily because I didn't want to be left alone. I knew that, like, because I know how this shit goes. I knew that spiritually I was in a very weakened state. And if I had gone in that direction with it, if I had told her to leave me alone, and I had kind of walked into the storm, then who knows what the fuck would have happened. And the thing is that I am legitimately physically and mentally very weak right now. Well, I don't want to say very weak, but I ain't fighting at my, I ain't 100%.
Nobody got time for that shit right now. I understand.
Right. So it was, so as far as like look into the abyss and fucking see who's there, no.
Sure.
I was primarily just interested in closing the door, which is what I did.
Okay. Wow. Very, very interesting. When was this? Christmas Eve or just over?
Yeah, this was Friday night.
Okay. Wow. Well, that's so. Wow. Okay. All right. Interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
I've had some things happen and that I forgot to mention on the show last week because it was such a whirlwind. I mean, Tobias literally, he came on last minute, great guy. Can't say any, I can't say more good about him, but I did have some other things happen that I had forgot to cover. One thing that I wanted to mention was that I am frequently, you guys have heard me talk about it before. Now I've become like a regular guest on this on the Bloody Bits Horror Show podcast and talking about horror movies. And the strangest goddamn thing happened. They did this live recording, and I think that it might have been Wednesday. I don't remember. Weird Wednesday. I don't know. I don't remember what day. Anyway, they did this live recording, right? And what they did was they set it up for you to kind of join and listen to them record on an app. Right. But you're in the audience, a lot like Clubhouse and how we do Clubhouse. You kind of come in and you're in the audience and they're recording, but not Clubhouse, called something else. Doesn't matter. Anyway, so I go and, I'm not doing anything. I'm just kind of getting ready for Christmas and, wrapping gifts and whatever. And I decided to go and, partake and listen to my buddies record. And I did. I got on the app and I don't know how and I don't know why. I can't explain it, but instead of being put into the audience, I was put into the room and I was immediately on the stage, and that shouldn't have been able to happen. So I was just kind of thrust into this episode. Thankfully, they were talking about the Tales from the Crypt Christmas episode. And
okay.
And as everybody knows that was a good one. So I knew what they were talking about. I was like, oh, fuck, thank God. It's something I've seen. But they were like, well, I mean, if you're here, if you want to stay, you can stay. I was like, well, shit, okay. But very weird. And they asked if I would mention it on the show because it was very strange. Because that shouldn't have been able to happen, but it did. So yeah, I'm mentioning it now. So that was weird, but okay. And then something else happened. Oh, okay. Well, before I move on to that, go check out the episode. It's live now. Bloody Bits Horror Show. I was there. But another thing that happened was, I've got my Christmas decorations up, and I am a crazy Christmas person. Like I'm a crazy holiday person. Like I go big for the holidays. And so I got all kinds of shit, and whatever. Anyway, I got these really cheap, they're from the dollar store, these plastic like LED signs, right? One is a Christmas tree and the other one is red. It says joy. Okay. And I've had these signs since last year. So I take all my batteries and shit out of everything when I put them away for the season because they'll get corroded. And so I pull these signs out and I'm putting batteries into things, and I put batteries in this joy sign, flipped on the switch. It didn't turn on. I figure, okay, whatever. It's from the Dollar Tree. I'll put it up on the shelf. Took the batteries out, put it up on the shelf. About 2 days after this thing is up on the shelf, the thing fucking turns on.
What?
And yeah, and this thing continues to turn on, and it's the craziest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. And so I'm like, well, I don't know if I want to mention anything, about it to anybody. I don't know if there's some type of scientific explanation. Maybe, I don't know, somehow it has surge of power and that's how it's coming on. But
titties so big you'll turn on a sign with no batteries.
Apparently.
I mean, that's
it's
I'm a couple credits short of my degree in electrical engineering, but even I could figure that one out.
That's got to be it.
That's got to be it.
And it's got to be, So that is what it's so strange. I mean, it's so fucking weird. So like the one particular night I come home, like I had noticed that it was happening, and I come home and I'm like, what, why does this keep doing this? It'll kind of blink on, it'll kind of fade and blink out and blink back on and just kind of do its own thing. I look beside it. I've got like this whole setup of like Nightmare Before Christmas. Like I have like people have like miniature towns or whatever for like Christmas towns or whatever. I have a Nightmare Before Christmas kind of deal. And so, that's my little Christmas town. But one of the things I have is like this train that has like Jack Skellington riding on it. It also lights up. And it does have batteries in it, but what I can tell you is that the batteries in that thing, when I pulled it out this year, I fucked up and didn't remove the batteries, and it's corroded as fuck. And it didn't turn on initially. But while this joy sign is freaking out, the fucking train lights up. And it's, barely hanging on. It's flashing. It's supposed to flash multicolored lights, but it's only flashing really like the red lights. And anyway, I take a video of all of it, and it's weird. And I don't know. I haven't really been messing with it too much, but the sign does still continue to come off and on. It had actually been on for the last couple days consistently. It just turned off last night. And so, now it'll, like I said, it'll kind of blink back on, but it was on for days. So I don't know. I don't understand what's happening. So if anybody has any type of, worldly explanation for why that would happen, that would be great. I mean, Pat thinks it's my boobs. It could be. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what my money's on.
But yeah, I didn't share that I don't know why I didn't share it last week. I just forgot, I guess. How do you forget? You fucking haunted Christmas decorations, but whatever. It happens.
Something I forgot to mention.
Yeah.
And this kind of goes back to my story on Friday night, but just to show like how like out of the blue that whole episode was. What did we do earlier Friday night? We had our Instagram live cryptid party.
Yes, we did.
And I was more or less perfectly coherent during the whole fucking thing. And it was probably about 2-3 hours later where I had my spaz attack. But that was a lot of fun if you want to talk about that for a second.
Yeah. We our buddy Greg Morrow from All the Weird. The one that gave Pat the bad heart. He I'm kidding.
I love that guy.
Greg is amazing. Oh, he's gonna, you know what? That's really gonna make him excited that you said that. No, Greg's amazing. He's heckin' wholesome. He's just a great guy. But apparently he hosts this Christmas stream every year. It's now become like an annual thing. This is the second year this has happened, so now it's a tradition, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And he has everybody on. I mean, anybody who's anybody he has on this live stream on Instagram for like 15-minute blocks of time. We were lucky enough. We actually went on with Nash Hoover from Chasing Legends, which I mean, you guys probably watched that show. I don't know. I don't watch it, but I know who Nash is. We were on with Nash Hoover for a minute. It was good. It was fun. Everybody, had something great to share. Lauren Smith from, Night Callers Radio, she read a Bigfoot Christmas story. Lisa from Cryptid Comfort, she wrote a poem and read it, a Christmas poem. And I mean, it was great. It was great fun. I believe you can still check out the replay if you go to Greg's Instagram account. It might even be on our Instagram accounts. I don't really know, but that doesn't matter. So yeah, check out that Christmas special. Lots of fun. Everybody was great. It was very cool. So
it was very cool.
And Pat was there, so that was
Yeah, it was.
He made it. So that was lots of fun. Anyway, so are we ready to do the news? You want to hear some news?
Let's do the news. What you got?
Oh my gosh. I actually, very fitting. I have a couple of fun, fun things and, some loose ends, for the year ending. I didn't write this one down, but I should have. Somebody has claimed to yet again. Somebody has come out and claims that they have found the crash site of the missing Malaysia flight that we covered.
Get out of here!
Yep, and this is the second time this year that this has happened. Initially, the first one that they found this year, they thought was in the middle of a forest somewhere, and this one is also in the middle of a forest somewhere. But they used a combination of like Google Maps and science and things like that. They believe they know where it's at, so they're going to check that out. Updates pending, but yeah, but this happens, ever since that flight went missing, and while we covered in the episode, ever since it went missing, they're pretty sure they know why and what happened. They still haven't found it. Apparently, they've just found pieces, I guess. I
don't trust this whole Google Earth as a tool to like investigate shit, because if there was something that Google Earth is not like this open source, like free to the public, completely untamperable with utility. Like if you're not going to find anything on Google, if they, you're not going to find anything on Google Earth they don't want you to already see. That's the way I kind of look at it.
That's true. Yeah.
So these people that scour through Google Earth looking for shit that looks like other shit, thinking that they're going to that they've been somehow inadvertently handed the keys of the kingdom by idiot guards. I think you're very naive. I think you're very naive. If there's something that they don't want you to find, they're not going to let Google take fucking pictures of it and put it on the internet. You know what I mean? Whoever they
I say that a lot about like the people are like, oh well, it's the Illuminati because there's hidden messages. Why the fuck would they put hidden messages for you to find out? And they're not. It's not like. And they're usually pretty obvious, and it's like, oh yeah, well, duh. I mean,
well, that's a good discussion to have, and it's a much larger one. But so on one side of the coin, you have like what I just said about Google Earth, right? Where you think they're just going to leave this shit laying in the open when all they have to do is go in and fucking rearrange a few pixels and delete something from a picture of a forest or whatever. Like, they're not going to leave anything there they don't want you to find, number one. But on the other side of the coin, you have the shit like all the murals and stuff at the Denver airport, where you're like, what the fuck is this about? You know what I mean?
Yeah, we need to talk about that one day.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Where there is blatant symbolism that's very public, and you're just like, what are you trying to do here? And
like,
right?
Is it a conspiracy? You want people to believe that there is one. That's the conspiracy.
Right. Like, I think like that is a much deeper conversation that has many onion layers to it that need to be peeled back, which we'll do at a different time.
I watched a commentary about somebody breaking apart the the moon landing conspiracy that we never landed on the moon. Here's the thing, okay? People might be surprised by this, or maybe not. I don't think we ever did land on the moon. I don't think so.
Wow.
And let me tell you, I'm really into this space exploration. Like, that is my, on top of like weird news, like I am fucking all about, astronomy and things like that. But I just think that what? It was one of the earliest episodes of On Wednesdays We Talk Weird was the moon landing conspiracy theory. And I don't think we did. And, but I challenge myself a lot. I'm not too stupid to change my mind. And that's one thing across the board. I feel like I've been consistent with. You guys know that because I just put out a whole we did the whole Dogman episode and, whatever, it happens. So I like to see, I like to hear the opposing side, because I like when the information changes, because in my heart of hearts, I'm a scientist, and that's what we do. And so, they had mentioned how stupid it was to say that, like, because one of the pieces of evidence against the moon landing is that there is a shot of a rock that you can see that has a C on it. Like, it's a marker, like it's a prop, like, oh, the C rock goes in the C area or whatever,
right,
when you're filming.
Right.
And you could see the C on it. So you're telling me that these people are so fucking genius that they can make the entire fucking world believe that they landed on the moon, but they left the fucking prop rock with the sea facing outwards.
As someone that makes movies, there's continuity errors all the fucking time, and just about
there is.
And people don't catch it right away. You don't catch it when you're shooting it. You don't catch it when you're editing it, and sometimes the shit gets released on home video before anyone fucking catches it. That to me is does not prove anything one way or the other, because I know. Mean,
on the original footage, the sea is actually not there. Like that sea is on official NASA footage later, but it's not on the initial, which of course the original footage they've now gotten rid of. It's gone. They're like, oh yeah, we just erased it. And it's like, what? Huh? Right. I'm not gonna get into the moon landing shit, because it just gets
I would love to, because that's really kind of hot. That's like one of the hottest things you ever said. You don't believe in the fucking moon. Because that's so crazy.
We've never been on the moon. It's never happened. God. Never. We did it because we were in a fucking space race, and we wanted to have the big dicks of the world, and so we lied about it and said that we were there. It wasn't possible for us to get on the moon.
Oh my God.
Did you finish it, or should I continue?
Oh my God. Oh.
Anyway. No, if you want to hear that, like I said, that was I think that was like episode 4 or 5 of this.
No, because we're doing that Moonfall. That Moonfall movie's coming out, and I wanted to, we don't have to do a whole show on it, but
people don't know how you feel about the moon landing, so I mean, we could do moon landing number 2, whatever, it's fine.
Yeah, or if we're gonna revisit stuff, because I guess
revisiting is fun. I think that's because you know what, this show is almost 2 years old. And I know my opinions on things have changed since then. My view on things have changed. I've researched more and other things. I'm always down to revisit a topic. Just tell me what you want to talk about, and I'll do it.
I'll be honest. I never gave it much thought. Like, I knew the theories. I had seen Capricorn 1, which was like the major, the big budget O.J. Simpson movie about faking the moon landing. And I'm very well aware of it, but I don't think I've ever really sat down and asked myself where I sit with it. And like I said with that Moonfall thing, because I never heard that theory before, that the moon was artificial.
Yeah.
And I think that a whole different topic, but
we could do that. We could just do a whole episode on like the moon. We could talk about the dark side of the moon landings, the Apollo missions. I mean, we just go and we can just do sure. The hollow moon and whatever. We could do all that. So we'll do that. But, speaking of NASA, that NASA had some things come out, which I thought was interesting. NASA wants more people to have sex in space. There is a shortage of people having sex in space, and they definitely want to know what that's like and what that does. And, if it does anything at all. I will do this. Like, NASA, I will do this for you. If you need me to come have sex for you in space while you all watch, that's fine. I will do that. Pat, what do you think about people having sex in space?
When I was very, very young, I realized that fucking in waterbeds was drastically overrated.
It is.
And, yes. That when you say sex in space, that's what my mind goes to. You remember trying to fuck in a waterbed when you were 16 years old?
Yeah.
You want to be stuck, in fucking outer space trying to do that for 3 months straight? No.
I mean, and that's what they said. They're like, well, your initial thought is, well, hell yeah, I'll come and have sex in space. But there's a lot of things that people don't realize that go into space. I think an astronaut or somebody came out recently.
You come everywhere. The second you fucking pull out, there's gonna be. This shit already comes out when you pull out. It's gonna be everywhere. It's gonna be floating around. It's gonna be messy as fuck. Quit trying to put two things. It's like sex in space sounds like to me. It reminds me of like the weird pizzas that Michelangelo would come up with on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, where they would combine like bacon and pineapple pizza, and you're like, well, pineapple's not bad, and neither is bacon, but I don't necessarily want to eat those things two things together on a pizza. You know what I mean? Like
they're like mushroom and salami and marshmallow, and you're like, what? Marshmallow? What the fuck?
Right.
It was like
you're eating chocolate sauce, like fucking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although that would be, I'm gonna invent that sexual maneuver. Euro meat and chocolate sauce.
Oh god.
That's gonna be my new fucking move, like the Dirty Sanchez or the Donkey Punch or something. The Euro meat and chocolate sauce. No, I'll take a pass on that. I'll watch people fucking space, and but
okay.
I would never. I'm 6'4". You know what I mean? Like, you don't need me up there doing that shit.
I'll still do it. I mean, I'm still down. I mean, I understand there's a lot of things that are involved that might make it a little unpleasant, but yeah, I'll still do it.
My wife would never go for it either. Like, I mean, I guess that should have been my first response.
Is my wife gonna let me have
this fucking pizza thing? I guess I should have let off with that one. I don't think I'd be allowed to have sex in space. I think she would.
Fucking NASA comes to your door, Pat. We need you to have sex, and you're like, I can't. My wife.
Doing it in Oak Forest is a hard sell sometimes. I don't know about fucking.
Oh, what it's like to be married. Well, I mean, so anyway, so that's one thing NASA did. The other thing NASA did that's not as funny is NASA hired a priest to prepare for extraterrestrial contact, and not just like because when you read the headline initially you think, oh, it's for the priest to talk to the aliens, and it's not just that. It is for that, but it's for mostly to have people of religions to understand extraterrestrial life.
Mm-hmm.
And but people are kind of pissed off about it. It's not the first time NASA's done something like this. They've done it before, and people protested it because they don't want any one religion to be looked at as the universal religion to another life form. And I agree. I mean, we really shouldn't do that.
I think they've done this before. I think that I think this was probably one of the first things they've ever done, as bringing religious leaders to talk about the social implications of proof of life on other planets. You know what I mean? Like, trust me, this is a PR maneuver 100%. There is nothing that's going to be gleaned from these conversations have been had.
Yeah.
At this point, are you fucking kidding me? This is the first conversation that you have, is because this is what happens. Well, okay, disclosure happens. People find out aliens are real. How quickly does society collapse because it throws in the whole question of God? Because religion is one of the fucking main linchpins that keeps societies functioning in the first place. And does alien life necessarily negate Christian religion or any religion mostly?
Right.
But I mean, Judeo-Christian religion.
Well,
Does extraterrestrial life, is that the final bullet in the fucking, or nail in the coffin with that?
Yeah.
And that everybody fucking knows that. Anybody that's got half a brain knows the societal impact that'll happen from disclosure like this. So trust me, when there was any inkling that this could even be possibly conceivably fucking true, or when they had definitive proof, when there was contact, when there was recovered stuff, whatever, trust me, religious leaders were in the room from fucking Jump Street.
I agree with that. Yeah.
The fact that NASA just brought on all these fucking religious people for this like roundtable discussion bullshit, dude, this is a fucking PR move, 100%. Because this. Well,
they're just waiting. Well, that's what it's soft disclosure, and that's what it is, and that's what I think that people would expect. Disclosure to be this big thing, this big world press conference saying, oh, there's alien life. It's not like that, you guys. It's not. And it's happening right in front of your fucking faces right now. It's happening.
Look at how they rolled out COVID. Everything else that's ever fucking happened to us as a species.
Right.
Yeah, there's certain events that there's 9/11 style events.
Sure.
Where the world changes in the blink of an eye.
Right.
And then there's the collapse of the fucking Soviet Union, right? There's the crumbling of the Berlin Wall. There's World War II. There's you know what I mean? There's fucking
Hitler didn't come on in one day and said, "Hey, we're going to kill all these people."
Exactly.
Didn't happen in one day.
There's gradual changes, and then there's drastic ones. This is going to be a gradual change, because a drastic one would topple society.
Exactly. And I probably should have saved this one for the transition because it's kind of topical. But It's just interesting, interesting that they're coming out with it. Just another thing to note, another thing to keep your eye on. Does it mean huge news? No, it's a drop in the bucket, but it's just another step. It's just another step towards, and again, NASA's done this before. They've hired like a spokesperson, a religious spokesperson before. And like I said, people are mad. They protested. They claim they got rid of the, spokesperson, because it's funded by, us. NASA's funded by us. And so, and people were mad about it. So understandably so, but that doesn't matter. We kind of do, as much as like I agree that any religion should not be presented to alien life form, we shouldn't tell them, oh yeah, we are Christian or we're Buddhist or anything. We shouldn't tell them we are anything. We should tell them that we have a mixing pot of different religions. That's what we should tell them.
I tell them shit they're gonna fucking know.
They probably already know. Right? They're probably already aware.
To them. We're gonna explain like,
and it's things we worship. Like. We shouldn't. We shouldn't focus on that so much. But we do need to focus on preparing people in those groups to accept that this is a thing, because it's a thing. It's I'm sorry. Aliens are real, whether you want to believe that they are or not. It doesn't matter. They are. It's impossible that they're not. It's just not.
I think you have to look at it like this: is we've kind of, when you talk about people are going to lose their shit if disclosure happened, right? I would say look at if there was ever a beta test on how people would respond to something like this. Maybe it's not going to match bullet point for bullet point, but let's just look at the COVID-19 response. Look at the masks. Look at anti-maskers. Look at people that didn't believe in the vaccine. Look at the people that, that didn't believe in the virus and all this other stuff. You're going to say aliens are real. I wonder if you had to characterize what groups respond in what ways. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to believe the science and say this makes perfect sense. Something like this was bound to happen. Just like people that were not inherently suspicious of the pandemic because they realized or the World Health situation was what it was, and the way that viruses work and the way that our culture is and moves so fast, and we can zoom around the planet in fucking 24 hours and shit. Of course something like this is going to spread fast. You know what I mean?
Right.
People like that are probably going to be the people more inclined to believe that extraterrestrials are real.
Yeah.
But it's going to be the people that can't psychologically handle putting a mask on to go into fucking Walmart. Those are going to be the ones that start shooting at the sky when they hear something about aliens on the news and are accidentally, the bullets are coming down and hitting their neighbors and shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's the way I like to, I kind of, there's going to be those people, but those people have already kind of outed themselves. You know what I mean? Like,
that's
you're going to see a repeat of what we already saw. I think we know what disclosure is going to look like at this point.
Somebody that I know has a really, I'm just going to quickly say it, has a really good theory about the vaccine. And, in the vaccines, people still are like, I'm not getting the shot, and the theory was that, yes, what if this was all man-made, okay, and COVID-19 wasn't real, and they made this vaccine, and they put it out there for people, or maybe it is real. Maybe COVID is a real thing that's man-made, and they did it so that it would kill people, and the people that got vaccinated were safe, because if the government really wants to control you, then they want you to be compliant. And if you got the vaccine, that means you complied. And if you didn't, that means that they need to continue to push this virus on you so that they kill you quicker, so that you're not a part of the herd anymore. And so therefore you're safer getting the vaccine than not. And I'm like, oh, so it's like a reverse, instead of putting microchips in people because of the shot, that would fucking make more sense, actually, to do it that way. If you want a whole fucking planet of compliant people, then the ones that got the shot, you would want to live, because they're going to continue to work for you.
Well, that's how anti-vaxxers frame it in their own minds, is that they're the rebels that are not conforming to this
And they'd rather die than.
But what's crazy is how when it gets politicized and you see the party lines that they fall.
Yeah,
whatever. We're not going to get into that.
Anyway, so on to the next. I'll get on to the next news. Because I still got a little bit more. Like I said, there's some loose ends. One thing I wanted to mention. There was just a major discovery in the human fucking body, and it's wild. A new muscle was discovered in the jaw. And what's even crazier is this muscle. It's one that you can actually, where your jaw actually hinges, you can put your hand on and fucking feel. And we just now discovered that it's there. That's insane. So.
That is insane.
It's insane. Speaking of, and I'll put the link to all the, the medical journals and all that fun stuff, proving that this thing is real now. I guess what they're trying to figure out now is, has this always been here and it's been under our radar, or was this evolution?
Evolution.
Because, the thing is that when you die, right, you decompose, your muscles decompose. So like, it's not like we can't really carbon date skeletal human remains and go, oh, they had this jaw muscle. We don't know. That's why dinosaurs are such a big fuckery, because we really have no idea what they look like. And maybe we'll talk about one of these days. But yeah, we discovered this new muscle in the jawbone. So when you question things like, I don't know if aliens exist or not like that, just consider that you live and work inside of your body every single day, and you don't even know what the fuck is going on with it. And that's amazing. That's the beauty of the science and discovery of the unknown. I mean, as silly as it is this crazy groundbreaking? Is this going to change life as we know it? Absolutely not. But hopefully it gets, people to open up their eyes more of how little we know about even our own selves.
Well, and I haven't checked out the story, and I definitely will. I'm willing to bet that it is a modern evolution based on how our diets changed over the past 100 years or so.
Oh yeah, it could be.
You know what I mean? It's probably something like that. And yeah, we are going to change. I remember bringing that up in like grammar school about how human beings are going to look different like in 100 years, and they were like, what? No, we won't. And I'm like,
oh yeah, talking about the tailbone and
of course we will. Like we're an evolving species. Like we're not. It's going to be slow and it's going to be gradual, and it's going to be based on environmental stimuli, and we're going to get shorter probably and we're going to get, I don't know, who knows what we're going to turn into. Maybe like the people in WALL-E or something. But
we've talked about it. There was a discovery this year about evolution happening, and I believe it was in the hand or the arm or something. It was another story that we had covered. I just don't remember. We cover a lot of things, but so this happens. This happens every couple of years. We have a new discovery about the human body. We have evidence of evolution within ourselves, within animals. I mean, that's not, there's no questions. In science, we accept that evolution's a thing, that's real. And so, we accept that truth. And like you said, we're going to continue to evolve. Now, whether or not this muscle is just something that we overlooked forever and just didn't really think anything about.
I don't know. It sounds kind of fucking goofy to me.
It is really silly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the C-Rock of the fucking human body world. So continuity error of fucking anatomy.
There you go.
But I thought that was cool. I thought I'd mention that. And last thing, another loose end tied up. This is crazy. Lots of news this week. The world must have known you were coming back. But the kid who inspired The Exorcist, the actual real life possession of this child who inspired the movie The Exorcist, the book and the movie The Exorcist, has been identified.
Wow.
And yeah, and that's pretty crazy. It was actually a guy who I think it was another podcaster who identified this guy, who took an interest in figuring out who this was. He did things like he had little information. He knew where it took place roughly and in some family events, because the boy allegedly became possessed after his aunt died. And so he combed through yearbooks and records and things like that, and ended up finding out that the boy in question, his name is Ronald Hunkeler. Unfortunately, Ronald passed away in May of 2020. So after he had discovered he said that he knew who he was, but didn't. He just now came out with the story But he had ended up getting into contact with, I don't know if it's a spouse or what. They didn't want to be named. Got in contact with them. They confirmed, yes, that's who that is. And, kind of talked about it a little bit. Now, some information that we know, Ronald ended up allegedly, grew up to work for NASA. He didn't come forward with his identity of who he was because he ended up being estranged from his family, and did not want his coworkers to find out because he didn't believe that he was ever possessed. He just said that he was a bad kid. So that's interesting. He says, and of course, him being, I think it was a 14-year-old at the time that this took place, he wasn't going to be like, oh, sorry, mom and dad, I'm just acting out because I'm an asshole. He's like, oh, yeah, of course, it's demons. Yeah, of course. But the family was very, very overtly religious. And so, this tends to happen a lot, unfortunately, with these kids and these religious families that, grow up and separate highly from that. He grew up to not really have a religion or any type of affiliation with any religious groups or anything like that. However, the person who came out and talked about this said that he grew up to live a relatively normal life. All the priests that exorcised him says that he grew up to be normal and live a normal life. But this person said the only weird thing about it was that when Ronald died, a priest came to perform last rites on him, and that was weird because they didn't call a priest, and so that was strange. She had no idea how he knew. So I don't know. So that's very interesting that happened. Unfortunate that he died, but that's one mystery solved, I suppose. I mean, what does it solve? Nothing really. I mean, if he doesn't think he was possessed, then he probably wasn't. I don't fucking know. So. That's my news for the week. Lots of news.
Good stuff.
Lots of news for the new year.
Thanks for putting that work in.
Absolutely. Well, I do the damn thing sometimes without pants. But anyway, so we've this is our second holiday season together. Well, of course, you missed out on the Christmas episode. That's fine. But we are now starting to round the clock. We've now done 2 Halloween episodes together. We kind of did 2 Christmas episodes. This is our second New Year's episode together. So happy milestone to you, Pat, and myself.
Yeah.
We kind of, what we've been doing with these holidays is kind of look back on what we covered before, because we don't know what the fuck we're doing. I'll be honest with you. We just talk weird every week, and and hope that you guys like it, and you do, so that's great. But so what we kind of done through this season is look back on previous topics, then we kind of spitballed each other and decide what to talk about. We had talked about doing another end of the world type of theory, because that's what we did last year. We talked about and that was mostly influenced because I wanted to talk about Y2K. We talked about that and other things.
You were amazed that I was alive for that. You're like, you were old enough to remember that, right?
Yeah, I suppose it's amazing. I was alive for it. I remember it, but I don't. I noticed, because when we did the 9/11 episode, there's such a gap between our age that we have very different experiences of the same event.
I forget. You forget sometimes that we're 10 years apart. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so, it's amazing to me, because then I can ask you. I can't ask my mom, because she's like, why are you asking me all these questions? This is weird. I'm like, okay,
It's what creepy Uncle Pat's for.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll ask Uncle Pat. So that's, anyway. But, so this year, while trying to decide, we kind of covered a majority of the big hitters during last year's End of the World episode, which is a good episode. Go listen to it. But, we didn't really know what to talk about, but fuck it. I figured, hey, you know what? Why don't we talk about the Heaven's Gate people? Because even though it wasn't the end of the world, it was the end of the world for them. So, well, according to them, though, it was the beginning of their new life. Anyway, we'll get into that.
Right.
What an interesting group. I'm surprised we've never I'm sure we've touched on it. I'm sure of it. But we've never really gone in depth and talked about it. It's pretty well known. So I figured it's about high time we do that. So
sure.
What do you know about? Because you were way excited to talk about this. So.
I was. So HBO released a documentary miniseries last year about Heaven's Gate, and I watched it and was absolutely like floored by it. I do like documentaries in general. I just watched the Beanie Baby one the other day, like, you know, so I'll watch random documentaries about random stupid shit.
Oh,
but
man, Beanie Babies was my shit. I'm telling you.
That's a good one to check out. If I don't know, what's a different topic for different time. But the Heaven's Gate, the Heaven's Gate stuff. I mean, when it happened, I was just old enough to like. I was just old enough to like. I was in high school. All right, I was probably like sophomore year. So I mean, I saw the news and I saw that it happened, but I also like knew what UFOs were, obviously. But it just seemed so fucking goofy, and I also think there was a lot fewer details. The internet was still in its infancy back then, and if I was on it, it wasn't to like read fucking articles about stuff. It was to chat with girls on AIM or whatever. So the story kind of went over my head, but there was enough bizarre details about it that just kind of got absorbed into pop culture that everybody knew, right? The jumpsuits, the Nikes, the fact that the comet was coming and they thought the UFO was behind the gun. You know what I mean? Like the basics were kind of out there and everybody just knew those. But that was it. And that's kind of where the story ended. For me, at least. I didn't know that I didn't think about it really, okay? Until, fast forward probably a couple years later when the internet really became a thing and we all had these super phones with a wealth of information in our hands so that you could read about anything you want at any time of day or night. And I was probably working a midnight shift or listening to Coast to Coast. And something reignited my interest in this. And I said, okay, well, let me revisit that story, because I remember as a 15, 16-year-old being slightly interested in it, but not having access to all the information. People probably didn't have access to all the information at the time. And let's go back and revisit it. And when I did, I remember being a lot more captivated by it, especially knowing that there were still active members.
Yeah.
And there was still people that kept the website functioning, and there was a home team and an away team. And that there was people that were purposely left behind that, and I know we're kind of maybe cutting ahead, but when I found that out, I was like, what the fuck do these people believe? That there are still people dedicated to this cause. And that combined with the miniseries that got recently released, I don't want to say I fell in love with it. Like, I don't believe what they fucking do. But I did go and buy a T-shirt off some website. I found it online, and it's the Heaven's Gate insignia, and it says, Heaven's Gate, what if they were right? Oh. And I'll wear it out a lot, and I have people stop me all the fucking time and want to talk about Heaven's Gate.
They like wink and give you the finger guns, like
it's like dudes that work at comic book stores or like you know what I mean, like random places and shit. But and they're always just like nerds like me, and they're like, "Did you see that documentary?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And like, we'll talk
like
about
Luciferians. Am I right?
No, like that fucking. What is it? That feminist Satanist fucking shirt that like those jerk offs wear. No, I just like, it's just kind of like I guess it's a conversation started with the right kind of people. And when I went to the gaming convention when we were hooked up with Tobias, like I wore it, and like one of the dudes I was playing D&D with for one of the games, like we had a conversation about Heaven's Gate for like 20 minutes and shit. And it's just fun. I mean, I guess I hate to say it's fun to talk about, but it's just, I think it's one of those real like pop culture American things that is very interesting, and very of its time.
Yeah. I'll agree with you. Kind of about what you're saying. Even like up until a couple of hours ago, the only thing I really knew about Heaven's Gate was that all these people killed themselves because they thought that they were going into space or something. And, that was really it. I mean, I knew the gist. I'm familiar with the pictures. I've heard the story over and over again, but I'm just like, okay, yeah, cult. It's a cult. Mm-hmm. And that was really all I knew. And then I started digging into it, and it kind of freaked me out a little bit. because I'm not going to say that I believe in what the Heaven's Gate people believe in, but like I kind of also believe in what the Heaven's Gate people believe in. And I'm like, oh, oh shit. Is that what I sound like when I talk to people? I sound like one of these fucking jackoffs. Is that so? I'm a little concerned. Of course they've got different. I don't believe in everything that they believe in, but that's for sure. But like the basis of what their group believed in, was that pretty much like we that pretty much Jesus and was an alien, and other religious figures are just aliens, right? They're extraterrestrials. We also have the capability of being aliens, but we're not because we're human. And so you can like leave this vessel and you can like transcend. I'm sorry, this vehicle. They referred to our physical bodies as a vehicle, and you can transcend to the higher. God, they have it. I should have wrote this down as a name for it, but you can transcend to being an extraterrestrial, basically. And that's what they think. And so when you put it like that, get rid of the mass suicide, get rid of all that. Get rid of the prophecies. You know how many people I fucking talk to that believe that on a regular basis? I mean, a lot of people in this community think a very similar way. And what I was saying when I said that I believe what they believe, not necessarily, I do believe that religious figures are just another form of some type of alien life. I mean, I think that they're extraterrestrial. Well, I think they're ultra-terrestrial, but I think that it's all the same fucking thing. Whether you want to call it God, whether you want to call it aliens, demons, whatever you want to call it, I think that they're all the same thing. And a lot of people think that. So while these people are crazy because they killed themselves, they're not necessarily too crazy for their beliefs. Of course, they changed the narrative a lot. So let's start over. Heaven's Gate came from two individuals who met and fell in love. Bonnie Nettles and Marshall Applewhite. Marshall was a school teacher, a music teacher, specifically, and Bonnie was a nurse. Marshall was not a good guy. He was allegedly he ended up leaving his job as a teacher because he was, trying to solicit one of his students. So the guy's a pedophile, so he's gross.
No,
Okay.
I didn't get that vibe.
What do you mean you didn't get that vibe?
He was a college theater teacher. He was a gay man, but he was a gay man in Texas, wasn't he?
I don't know anything about any of that. Yeah, I don't know anything about any of that. He was a school teacher, not a college. I mean, maybe he did college eventually, but he had, from my understanding, well, and this is the issue with it, is that while I was reading about all this, there's so much inconsistency. Nobody even really knows how they met exactly. But from my understanding, he was a school teacher with kids, I think high school, and he was trying to have a sexual relationship with one of his students, and that didn't go over well. And so he was kind of ran off. He wasn't charged or with anything.
I don't think the problem was necessarily that the student that he was having a sexual relationship with was underage. I think that it was more
unethical because they were a student.
No, he was a gay dude. He was a closeted gay dude, because a lot of the Heaven's Gate stuff, like the voluntary castration and stuff, it's a lot of gay shaming. It's a lot of self-imposed gay shaming.
It is, yeah, it is.
And that's the other, because I mean, not that I like get off on that topic, but it's something I find, how the way the closeted people can't handle the fact that they're fucking gay. Like, it's something that I find very interesting. And when we talk about serial killers, this comes up a lot, like the Gacy episode, right?
Sure.
Is that like my kind of read on the situation? And I could be wrong, because I have not read every book. This man was never in my kitchen. I'm going off documentaries and fucking Wikipedia articles, right, guys? So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But my take on it was that he was a college professor in the South, in the 60s, and during a time when homosexuality was not widely accepted, even in theater departments, if you could ever imagine what a backward fucking time that would have been. And he was basically gay at the wrong place at the wrong time, and he was run out of school. Now the woman and that he ended up hooking up with, she was married with children, but she was a certifiable fucking whack job.
She was nuts, yeah.
Right. And he was kind of using her as a beard, was my impression of it, was that his psychological trauma just stemmed from the fact that he was a latent repressed homosexual, and she was just fucking like nuttier than squirrel shit, and that was the initial pairing there.
Well, yeah, and like I said, there's a lot of inconsistencies about how and why exactly they met. But generally across the board, it seems to be agreed upon that he had some type of near-death experience, and he was in the psych ward. She didn't normally work the psych ward, but she was there and was his nurse. And she was like, our birth charts are the same or something. And, we are meant to be together. We've known each other for eternities, and we're meant to be together. And so, because that's pretty much what happened. Now, okay, let me pause there for a second. Because again, this is all very kind of jarring to me to even have this conversation. Sometimes you meet people and you know that you were supposed to know that person. Maybe not necessarily because you are supposed to start a cult together, but that is very valid. So, and that could be romantic partnerships, that could be friendships, that could be, as colleagues, there's different types of relationships out there. So, she probably did have some, they probably did have some weird kindred connection.
Well, look at all they did together. Obviously, you just can't throw two people in a room and have them be that successful.
Right.
There was some kind of mojo going. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
whether that was a good influence or not, they still built an empire together.
Right.
They did that together. So, I mean, they just both were crazy or had their issues or, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so, I mean, they met on, per these unusual circumstances, and, that was it. I mean, they were together. They ended up carrying on this sexless relationship. Allegedly they didn't have sex, but they were, very much life partners.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're right, she was probably his beard. There was no sex really at all within the congregation. Is that correct?
Right.
They didn't do that. But she had, allegedly had some form of immaculate conception because she was supposedly a virgin and got pregnant. Who knows how that happened? She was just hoeing around. She got some dick. She got pregnant, called it something else. I don't know if it was a stunt. I'm not sure. But it doesn't matter. They bopped around, the country, convincing people to join this movement that they had. And they very much based their religion off of, off of the Bible. They would use stories from the Bible to say, look, this is what we're telling you, and this is the actual interpretation of what the Bible's saying. And, again, the gist of it is that, Jesus was an alien, that aliens, right, have this life force. They call them walk-ins, right, that they will take over bodies once somebody's spirit has been broken, and then an alien will come in and take over that body as the driving force, and then you continue to do this all throughout time, over and over and over again. Your soul's infinite. And Applewhite had claimed that he was Jesus, that Jesus was, this same type of soul. But not everybody had this special power. Not everybody could do this because not everybody was a walk-in. Some of them were original souls that had to be, broken down first. And, but they had like a rule set for how you could do this and how you could become this. And that was, of course, that's where the cult mentality comes in, because like the first step of this was like you could join their group and you would have to abandon your families. You would have to give them all of your money. You would have to cleanse yourself from all, otherworldly things. I mean, and simple things, even like you couldn't eat fast food. You had to be unified in like your clothing and your appearance. The castration aspect of it if you're male, because they were sexless, because they said that these beings were sexless. And the whole point of this was, and there's more to it. If you do these things, then you can transcend into this being, that you're ultimately meant to become. I suppose you just die and try again if you don't end up breaking your spirit and transcending. I don't know. But so basically take away all joy in life, and you can be an alien if you do that. So that, that's the gist of it. So they bob around everywhere, and they're doing their stuff. I mean, they would have lectures where they would have upwards of like 400 people in attendance to listen to them talk about this crazy shit. I mean, they were obviously...
Well, this was like the 70s, and you saw a lot of new age movements starting. You saw a lot of people living in these communes off the grid, right? And so it was unique, but it wasn't unheard of, right? And what was kind of what they had going is that, they had the Bible angle. Okay, so they weren't coming up with some brand new religion from scratch. They were working in the UFO angle, which was kind of like, the 70s was when kind of the birth of modern ufology, I guess you would say. You were seeing it reach more and more people.
Sure.
And that was kind of what that's how they sold it. That's how they got these people to show up to these meetings. Their flyers would address, would tease the correlation between Christianity and UFOs. So that's what got the people through the door. Now, you might have 4 people show up to one of their meetings when they rolled into town, and only 5 of them might talk to these people afterwards. And of those 5, only one of them might actually join the group and be in there for any, sizable amount of time. But when you're doing that weekend after weekend all over the country, and you're splitting up into different cells that are doing it, because that's the thing that they did, is that it wasn't just one person, one group. Eventually they would splinter off, and you would have different groups doing this, and then they'd all meet back in California, like where they had a ranch, right? And that was how they were able to kind of amass this thing very quickly. What the group that killed themselves in the 90s was only a fraction of what the group used to be when it first started.
Right.
It was much larger. And, kind of the one thing that all this group had in common is that it was a lot of intellectuals. It was a lot of alienated intellectuals that were kind of probably, I hate to say this, but non-binary. You know what I mean? So the idea of being in a sexless group or this idea of forced castration, I'm not saying everyone went through with it, but you're talking about people that's not immediately a fucking turnoff for. So you have a group of people that aren't immediately married to their genitalia, right? Or the idea of their assigned gender. So, I don't want to say that this is like one of the first trans like power movements, but there was definitely an element of that at play here.
I mean, right. Have you seen that insignia? I mean, come on, that's gay as fuck. I can say it because I'm mostly gay, but but no, you're right. You're absolutely right. And especially at the time, again, we're not talking about the group that killed themselves yet. We're not there yet. We're talking about how they weren't even called Heaven's Gate initially. They went through a couple of different name changes.
All right. Well, you rebrand,
exactly. I mean, if the first name's not trendy enough, we'll do it again. Not here on Wednesdays We Talk Weird. We didn't have
to. We're fucking this name into the dirt.
Fucking gold right out of the gate, buddy.
So. We're never changing this one.
Never. But we've talked about it, and but anyway, but this was before. I mean, this was like I'm gonna say this was pre-Bonnie. I think that this is a really good way, and we're gonna know why. But this was pre-Bonnie, and so I mean, they were going around, they were doing their thing, they were gathering these people. Again, in the 70s and the 80s, you didn't have internet like you do now, and so the only source of getting this information out there, was to boots on the ground do it, and then you didn't have people sitting around at home on the internet, so they're like, well, fuck, I'm gonna check out this UFO thing that's going on tonight. There's nothing else to do, might as well. This was also the time, again, Heaven's Gate is considered a UFO religion, and there's a couple of others that are like that. I'm sure we'll cover others. We have actually already covered one on the show. The Church of the Subgenius was also invented at the same time. It was invented at the, and that's not like part of the lore, like the story. No, it really was. That started in the 70s, and was invented at the same time, and is also considered a UFO religion. Very similar belief systems, but of course, it's a it's a parody religion. But so this was kind of the trendy thing to do at the time. It was kind of cool to do that. But, like Pat's saying, you also had these groups of people that really didn't belong anywhere, that really didn't have a place, who took comfort in this fucking fringe ass group of people and felt like that they could identify, could it have been because they were gay? They were part of something that they didn't quite understand yet. It absolutely could have been. Could it have just been because they were already fucking quirky and just were black sheep anyway? Absolutely could have been a couple of those factors. I agree. Heaven's Gate is very, very, very gay. It's very LGBTQ plus friendly. But not that gay people are crazy and committing mass suicide. So I'm gonna, put that out there now. I know lots of gay people and they've never done that. So I don't.
No, they're not self-destructive at all.
No. And, so anyway, this is kind of how it started. They would bop around. Now, the first red flag in this, and again, we didn't have information like we have now, was that their narrative changed a lot. They would kind of build onto the story and what they believed in just kind of as they went. They were just kind of winging it. They were like, oh shit, well, that story that we just told in the Bible that we tried to compare to us, that doesn't really make any sense. So let's go ahead and change it up. And, they would change it up. And we know this because, we have early copies of pamphlets, because they were making videotapes, which was the thing to do. Again, that's exactly what they did with Church of the Subgenius. They did that. And, so we know because the information on these little pieces of evidence that we have throughout the years contradicts each other. So that tells me that these two individuals who ran this group, they knew what they were doing. Were they crazy? Yeah, but to a degree, do they know that they were purposefully being deceptive? Yes. Were they consciously doing it? I don't know, but were they purposely being deceptive for whatever personal gain? They absolutely were. So what ended up happening was, excuse me, and Bonnie ended up dying of some type of cancer in 1985. And things kind of fell apart for the movement at that point. Didn't completely disappear. Marshall was still out there. And I'm going to mention this too, I guess, because people might be angry if we don't. They didn't go by Bonnie and Marshall. They went by Doe and T. Or they went by Bo and Peep. So just another proof of their inconsistency was that they didn't even know what the fuck their names were. And, whatever. But again, very heavy in identity crisis. I don't know. They didn't know who they were. That's whatever. But, she ended up dying in the mid 80s, and Marshall ended up continuing on with the movement, but it kind of dwindled. It wasn't really going anywhere. And so, but he tried. He continued to try, continued to maintain that he was Jesus. And, then at that point in time, you got the early 90s entered the game with the internet. And one thing that they did do that was right was they jumped all over that shit. They were like, oh, we need to use this. And they did. They created a website, with there's a lot of information. The website, again, it's still up. I'm going to link it. You're going to go look at it. If you haven't already, who hasn't looked at the Heaven's Gate website? It's eerie, but they did. They created a website. They put all kinds of information on there that you could read about. You can actually even write into them to get information to this day on Heaven's Gate.
Mm-hmm.
And their books are available. I mean, there's one book, it's available online, there's videos available online, it's all there. But this wasn't really something that, this was like the first time that something like this was utilized. So it was kind of a groundbreaking moment for them to do that. So getting that information out there again, though, not a bunch of people were on the internet at the time. And if they were, like Pat said, you were talking to girls on AIM or whatever, people did on the internet in the 90s. Trying to download a 5-second video clip for 3 days straight. It happens. But this was kind of what catapulted this movement a little bit more. So it kind of got a second win, still not nearly as big as it was. And then there was this event, this once in a lifetime event, where the Hale-Bopp comet was going to pass Earth. And they kind of took it, and I'm not really sure if it was Applewhite who took it on his own, or collectively they all kind of decided together that this would be the perfect opportunity to commit suicide. Well, okay. I'm going to back up a minute. The Heaven's Gate people, and it even says on the website, have an extremely strong stance against suicide. Ironically, believe it or not. But they don't view suicide as the same thing that we do, which is weird.
Right. That's not what they think they were doing.
Right. And that's not right. They did not think that they were killing themselves. They thought what they were doing was releasing themselves from their vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
So that when the comet came, because in the tail of the comet was a spaceship. And that spaceship was, their family, their extraterrestrial, family. And they would come and take them on with them. And they had to shed their physical body in order to do this. So, that's what they started convincing people. Now, from my understanding, this also wasn't unusual for the Hale-Bopp comet. A lot of people were concerned. You had doomsday people. This is going to hit the Earth. It's going to cause catastrophic events. This is the end. Like people get when you have things like this happen. They're like, oh no, this is going to be it. And so they took advantage of that, presumably, and were able to recruit just a little bit more people in, and have them partake. But yeah. So in starting March 22nd of 1997 is when they had started carrying this out. I think it was March 26th or 27th is when authorities realized that there was 39 dead people in this home. Marshall had rented out a place in, I think it was California, I don't even remember, and that's where he decided to do it. They ate laced applesauce and drank a bunch of alcohol, and they donned the same outfits, but that wasn't unusual. They always wore the same outfits because they thought everything should be unified. They placed plastic bags over their heads and all laid down and went to the next the next world, or whatever they call it. And then they discovered these people. But this it gets kind of strange because they didn't all do it like unified. What they believe happened is that they did it like in not shifts, but like in groups of people.
Right.
Like they had, I think it was like 15 in this group, 8 in this group, or somehow they've done the math to figure it out.
Well, yeah, because if they didn't want just a bunch of dead bodies that strewn all over the place, so they had it. There was different waves, and the first people would go, and then the second group would come up behind them and make sure everything was kind of like, taken care of. And
right, and so like you could assist, and you look at the pictures, they're all wearing this purple, the shroud they call it over themselves, and it's like they didn't just cover themselves up. I mean, they were covering each other up, while they were dying, and so it took place over the course of a couple of days. They just had this fucking party weekend, which is even crazier because that means that, people had the opportunity to leave, and Pat, you kind of had started mentioning people that were the people that were there that did. I didn't dig that deep into it. Do you know?
No. Well, not that well, there could have been, but I don't think that's ever been proven. Okay. And no one's ever come out publicly and said that they were there, that they witnessed, probably for legal reasons, if nothing else, that they were there, they witnessed all this, and that, they left before the police came. I mean, someone notified the police that they were dead, so obviously there were survivors. There were people that were left behind to maintain the websites and to handle some of the logistics of the cult's
and that was planned, right?
assets. Yeah, and that was planned. But as far as anyone not going through with the deed on the day of, and just kind of like faking it and then looking around and getting up and walking out, I don't know if anyone did that. I think, like, narratively it kind of works. Like, I think I might have been that dude that was like,
Shit just got real. I'm getting out of here.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, like, when you talk about the castration things, because there were some people that were like super into it, and then there were some people that weren't.
Yeah.
And they kept kind of like, they never forced anyone to do it.
No. No, they didn't. It wasn't like you have to do this.
No. Yeah, but there's a real good story on the documentary where a guy had initially volunteered for it and had second thoughts and was kind of being pressured, but not really. And when he said no, that was kind of it. And then someone else did it and then died from it. I mean, you can't. They're doing these like backroom castrations and shit. Like, it's a crazy, dangerous procedure.
Dangerous, yeah. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
And to what end? Like, what do you like? That's where you really have to think that your genitalia and your sexuality is so much of a detriment that you should cut it from your body. And I think that really speaks more to the mental state of these people and where their heads were at than the goofy alien hiding in the comet shit. You know what I mean? Believe in some crazy science fiction bullshit happens to tons of people all over the fucking place, right? There's people walking around out there that think that H.P. Lovecraft wrote real stories about fucking monsters.
Right.
It's just something that happens, right? I know a guy that's a very intelligent human being. He's got a very, very important job. And he thinks that Stephen King has supernatural abilities where he's able to commune with different universes. And I don't know what the fuck.
What? Can we have him on the show?
No, he would never come on and talk about
Damn
it. But my point is that people believe all kinds of wacky shit. Not everyone chops off their fucking nuts.
Right. Yeah.
And the chopping off the nuts thing, I think, is if you're going to really look at like the standout philosophical components of the Heaven's Gate cult, look at the castration part. I think that tells you a lot more about what these people had in common than the ancient aliens and all that stuff. I
mean, look at everything else besides like their D-Day or whatever. Look at the whole thing as a whole, because it is really interesting. Aside from the fact like they committed this mass suicide, again, it was very eerie. Some of these beliefs that they had, that I can completely understand how people could believe that, and how they could fall into that trap.
Well, that's just the hook, man. I think it goes back to Applewhite and him losing his job for being a gay man in Texas in the 60s, and the shame that brought upon him, and the alienation, and him trying to find this group and starting this group and trying to find these people that were also dealing with sexual repression and dealing with sexual alienation, and how they chose to deal with it in this cult was basically to not deal with it, to have it be a non-issue. They were not sexual beings because they couldn't come to grips with the sexual beings that they were. And I think that to me is the biggest tragedy about it, is that if these people could have just accepted the fact that they were gay or they were asexual or they were non-binary, then none of this stuff would have happened. A lot of these people could have still been alive. If you watch the documentary, like, I mean, I don't want to act like I got the world's greatest gaydar, but I got a pretty good fucking gaydar. And like, you're watching this documentary, it's a lot of lesbians and it's a lot of weirdo, like, gay computer programmer types, that didn't know what to do about it in 1983 because they were from fucking Kansas, like, and this was the best option they had for community, because that's, I mean, I think that there's something about, when we think of queer individuals, we have a tendency to think of these hypersexed, very flamboyant, very loud, very in love with, like,
stereotype, sure.
yeah, and anybody that's been around enough people and that really has friends that are queer and know that sometimes, like, that's not the way they always are. Sometimes they are very, very non-sexual. And what do you do? If your option is to be straight, which you're not, or go to a gay bar where it's fucking, hedonistic, which you're not, you got nothing. You don't fit in anywhere.
Instead, you go join the fucking alien cult.
Well, okay, fine. That takes a hard left turn where everyone cuts their nuts off and kills themselves before a fucking comment. Like,
I think that one theme that we have with, because this is not a topic that we are unfamiliar with, something that we've talked about on the show before, and we've continued to talk about. We've talked about it, like you said, with Gacy. We talked about it with Armin Mibus. We've talked about it with people that kill together. We've talked about this a lot, and I think that this is why these are really good examples of why inclusion is so fucking important.
Amen.
And, because then you are not going to have shit like this, probably. I mean, you're still going to have shit like this because nobody is ever going to 100% accept everybody. It's just not ever going to happen.
Representation matters. People need to see themselves. And if they don't see themselves, then everybody's got a hard time trying to figure out who the fuck you are. But at least for, like, I had a hard time with my identity growing up, and I am a fucking white dude, right? So imagine growing up and not having 1,000,001 movies, comic books, TV programs, musicians that are exactly like you.
Yeah.
Singing songs and telling stories that exactly fit your fucking mold. I had the luxury of that, and my life was still fucking what it was. I can't imagine if you're at some, far-flung end of the spectrum and you got nothing. You know what I mean? It'd be terrible.
I mean, everybody knows that I'm a proud weirdo, and for the most part, I'm generally, I don't feel bad. I never had to come out. I never had that moment because it just never really. I don't even know if my mom knows that I prefer titties, but it doesn't matter. It never mattered because I never thought that it was like such a big deal that I had to do that. I had to announce it to the fucking world. But, just in general, being a black sheep type of person, as I've always been, as much as I learned to accept that, like I said, even reading about some of these Heaven's Gate beliefs has made me feel kind of a strange way about myself. And, kind of question if I, like, God damn, is that fucking what I sound like every week on the show when I fucking talk about this stuff to people? Granted, like I said, my beliefs don't align with all of theirs, but you still struggle with that because you're still, even when you embrace it and you are proud, I mean, it's still you against the world because you're still the one fucking weirdo out of all the people around you. And that's hard. So like you're saying, what if you had absolutely no other outlet? I'm lucky. I got the internet. I could just go on the internet and be like, hey, does anybody else think the way that I do? And fucking 50 people will be like, yeah, me,
Right.
And so it doesn't feel so alone. But you couldn't do that in the 70s and the 80s. And,
they were the first people to figure out you could do it in the 90s.
Right. And exactly. So, it started to, that's when things started to kind of get better. But when we think about it, and I would say that probably one of the more pivotal points, I would say the 80s started it because we had a boom in media and creativity. Was it because maybe television became more popular? I'm not entirely sure. But was it because of groups like this previously in the 70s that were, we were like, oh, these people are here and they're seen now? I don't know. But it kind of started in the 80s. The 90s, we had the internet, and then the internet just continued to boom, which then created, what we have now. But if we think about it, even back to 80s, that was only 40 years ago compared to all of human history. That was only 40 years ago. And so we are still very, very infantile in these beliefs and this, movement, these systems. So, again, that's still kind of the point. Inclusion is extremely important. And you know what? It's not up to you to decide how other fucking people feel about themselves. I'm gonna tell you right now, if you don't respect pronouns and you're listening to the show, jump the fuck off. We respect pronouns here.
I'll bring this up
No.
as what?
No, don't. Are you gonna have a rebuttal? Don't have a rebuttal.
No.
Okay.
First of all, don't silence me before I say anything. You don't know what the fuck I'm going to say. I'm going to make this one point, and then my air is growing thin just because
Sure.
I'm still easing back into this. That's something that honestly, so if you look at my social media right now, I don't have the him he stuff up or whatever. And I've honestly wrestled with that probably for the past couple months now about whether or not that's
We've
something.
talked about it, yeah.
Yeah, is that it, I'm like, am I bad for not doing this? Because I feel like I should, but at the same time, I don't want to be disingenuous. You know what I mean? And I think that's always the biggest concern of mine, is that I don't want to seem patronizing. I don't want to seem disingenuous. So in times of question like that, I just don't do anything. And I do 100% respect other people's use of pronouns, and I'm very aware of it. And I definitely am in many situations with many people that I'm friends with where it's something that I have to be mindful of. And that's perfectly fine with me. But because my pronouns are not any like what you would fucking think, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if me labeling myself with them would just make it seem like I'm being a fucking dick. I don't know. I would love for the listeners to weigh in on that. I honestly would. When this show goes live tomorrow, I will 100% put a poll up and let people, which maybe sounds like, well, I'll let people decide for me. I'll let everyone else tell me what to do, because I don't know what to do. I really don't, because it feels, for me, like I said, feels redundant if I do it, but I don't want to seem like I'm not sensitive and respectful, because I 100% am.
Sure.
But I don't know. And I don't think the consensus has been made yet amongst whoever, so.
Well,
what's your hot take on that situation?
I mean, I would agree with that. I've said that I've never felt the need to put it out there, just because I identify with she, her, and I look like she, her.
Right.
And so therefore I don't feel the need to have to insert that. You know what I mean? I am, she, her passing. Like, nobody's going to, because I'm a natural born female at birth, and I continue to identify as such in my adulthood.
Right.
But I am very, again, very much an ally as a pansexual polyamorous person, I'm very much an ally, with those groups. And I 100% respect pronouns, and I would be okay if now that I would be just fine if we started identifying ourselves just like we do our names, with pronouns. And I've been in groups of people where we've all stopped and went, okay, wait, pronoun check-in. What's everybody's pronouns here? And we all kind of go, I've been at parties where it's like that. And I don't care. That's fine. That's okay with me.
Yeah. Whatever.
And so I don't have an issue with that. I have not felt the need. I think I did put it on my Instagram, because Instagram now has a place to put your pronoun, and I think that's cool. You should do that. Why don't the social media networks do that? And then, it prompts us to do it anyway. If you want to add it, add it. I think it shows where you stand with it when you do add it. So I think that's good. But yeah, do a poll about it. And see what other people think. What I was going to say, what I was going to continue to say just about the, we respect pronouns. I do want to finish off that soapbox, because I think it's really important. That's one thing that we do around here. Believe it or not, we respect your right to believe and identify with whatever religion and spiritual views you want to believe and identify with. I have been responsible for shitting on Christian views, and when I do that, I don't mean to do it as you or anybody as an individual Christian. I mean it in a very extremist way. Maybe I should stop doing that, because I've met some really amazing Christians out there. I don't care what you believe. If you believe that there are, that we are part alien and that we can transcend to aliens, I don't care. That's not my business. Fuck it. I respect your right to believe in whatever political view you want to believe in. That is not my job. I'm very left leaning. Like that's where I stand with it. But I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong. If you are, if you have no legs, and you feel bad because you're disabled, I don't care about that. What I care about is that people are fucking nice to each other and that you don't try to dictate how other people choose to live their life as long as you're not causing harm or destruction to other people. You can do whatever you want. If you want to be a fucking junkie and live in the alley and never do anything or be any type of productive member to society, as long as you're not fucking stealing and hurting other people and you're fucking working hard for that crack rock, I don't give a fuck. Do it. I don't care.
If I could turn back time.
And I think that is extremely important. And that's the kind of community that I want to build for myself. And that's the kind of people that I want to surround myself with, is people that don't ostracize other people because of their belief systems or anything like that, their identity. I don't want that. I don't want to live in a world that's like that. And I think that that's a start. And I think that that's where we should go with it. So that was my soapbox. That's what I had to say about that. Pat, do you agree?
I agree.
So go do the poll. Tell Pat if he should announce his pronouns online. And what you guys think about it. Share your insight on it. I mean, are you a person that is, you identify as the gender that you present as? Do you think that you should share your pronouns? I don't know.
I would love, I would invite a much larger conversation about that, and feel free to disagree. Like, I don't mind people not agreeing with me, and I don't mind people, you just don't get angry at me for asking the fucking question. I don't know the answer, and tell me what you think the answer is, and that's all I'm asking.
Sure, absolutely. And that's another thing. Disagreements aren't a bad thing. It's how we grow. I think me and Tobias kind of touched on it a little bit last week because, he's very much, he schooled us all on Yule and things like that. And, we kind of talked about it like, I don't care that people don't agree with me 100%, because I want to learn. And I also want to teach. And, we can't do that if we, arguing is different than disagreeing. And so,
100%. 100%.
You can respectfully disagree with people and educate why you believe what you believe in without being a dickhole. So there's that. But anyway, the Heaven's Gate people, fucking nuts. They're crazy. Off the rockers. Fuck those people. I'm just kidding. It sounds like there was a lot of people that just didn't feel like they belonged anywhere. And so they thought that they could insert themselves into this group. And there are still people who subscribe to these ideas. What's scary is when you go on the Heaven's Gate, that's not scary, but it is interesting. When you go on the Heaven's Gate website, they have a page, which many websites in the 90s did. They have a page of like related websites to them, like not to them, not affiliated with them, but things that they had interest in. Number 2, the second fucking link on there is Art Bell Show. It is. And when you look through like some of those websites, I was like, well, shit, I want to go check that. I don't know how any of them are even around anymore. It's kind of amazing that this website is up, but I would be interested to go through the list, because I tell you what, some of that shit is stuff that I would read and that you guys would read and that you guys would look into. So, I mean, we can at least all relate on that end with the Heaven's Gate group that, we had some similar ideas. So I don't know. Makes me feel strangely. Maybe it makes you feel strangely. I don't know. But just very interesting to note. So, check out that website and let us know what you guys think about the Heaven's Gate thing. I would love to try to reach out to, and it was a thought that I had, 2 hours ago. I'd love to reach out to the website and be like, hey, is there anybody who wants to come on the show and talk about this?
I don't think that'll happen. I don't think they do interviews.
It might. Some people have come forward and said that they've worked on the website, and I don't know if it's true, but that's what they say. So we'll see. But anyway, I don't have anything. Do you have anything else to add before we?
I got nothing, babe. I need to take medication.
Okay.
Turn into a fucking pumpkin.
Okay, all right.
Not even a werewolf. I can't even be like, I'm gonna turn into a werewolf. That would be cool. No, I'm gonna turn into a fucking pumpkin.
You're gonna be a pumpkin.
I'm just gonna be orange and rotund.
Wow. Watch out for Peter.
Sit in the dirt and fucking spill my seeds all over the place if I poke too hard.
All right. Well, on that note, guys, we'll see you back here next Wednesday.